Welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Masters of the Universe movie. We've been waiting, nearly 40 years for another Masters film. We finally got one. And I've got to see it the other day. I think it was the first showing that was going on actually that I saw near me. So I went along and I was very, very happy with what I saw. It's not without its frustrations, but all in all, very positive. I've wrestled with my thoughts over it for the last several days before doing this review. And yeah, I've gathered some thoughts as to what I think. Now, before I start, there may be mild spoilers. I'm not intending to do a full spoiler review. This is more just a general feedback of how the film played to me, my thoughts on it, and yeah, share them with you. So I'm going to warn you, there may be spoilers, but probably not. But if you're worried about anything, I'd watch the film first, then come back to this. But as I say, if there is spoilers, they're probably going to be mild and won't ruin your enjoyment. So first of all, the film looks beautiful. Beautiful. Really love the colour palette they've gone for. And it does look like a cartoon came to life. It exploded onto the screen. If I'd have got this in 1987, I think I would have been giddy as a child because it looks like the cartoon. There's changes, but all in all, it's not far from the originals. Now, I do believe that they may have included a few things from the later cartoon series they did. I never followed those. Filmation was my era. It's what I grew up with. By that time I'd moved on to other things. I was a lot older, but I always held He-Man close. It was nostalgic for me, hence why I'm doing this review and talking about the film now. First of all, the positives. I thought the adaptation of most of the characters was spot on. There were little things that bugged me, but all in all, they were good. And when I say they bugged me, it was change for change's sake, or that's how it appears to me. I'm not on the creative team. I don't know the decisions, but Skeletor, for example, his costume was on point, except for he lost the little iconic skull cross on his chest. And I'm like, why would you leave that off? That was such a big part of it for me. For me, it looked wrong without that, and that bugged me. Not enough to ruin the film, but as someone that loves the original source material and the designs, I'm just like, oh, little things like that. And there's lots of little things like that that bugged me. That was my real big bugbear on a low level. But speaking of Skeletor, Jared Leto, or is it Leto? We'll call him Jared. Jared was amazing. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea. I don't mind Jared. I've seen him in things I've liked. I've seen him in things I don't like. You know, I thought he was great in Panic Room, Dallas Buyers Club. Didn't really care for him a lot in the Suicide Squad, though I think he did get a rough end of the stick in that. I think a lot of his stuff was cut. But I think he redeemed himself in the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. So, you know, I don't judge Jared too harsh. But in this film, I think he stole the show, quite honestly. He was fantastic. Couldn't recognise him physically or audibly. But nonetheless, he did a great job. Now, he changed the voice up for the character. Obviously, he made it his own. It's grown on me. I think that's the way I'm going to term it. I think when I first heard it, I wasn't sure. I was like, I like the cackly Skeletor, whereas this was a bit more Bane-like, for want of a better expression. But, you know, it's doing its own thing. Jared's doing his own thing. I get it. And having seen a few more clips of Skeletor since I saw it, it's grown on me. It's grown on me, as these things tend to. So, yeah, all in all, no massive problems with Skeletor. I think he knocked it out the park. He was so funny. This dry-witted humour, played it very well for laughs at points. And the way they've created the look is amazing. He does look fantastic. So yeah, little niggles, but nothing major. Knocked it out the park. My favourite character I think they adapted was Trapjaw. Wow, I got chills watching Trapjaw, because I think when you see a 2D version of a villain and they are played for laughs to some degree, as incompetent, you kind of, the threat goes, you lose the threat. I felt the threat on screen when he was attacking in the film. I was like, wow, he's unreal, he's badass. Love what they did with Trapjaw. And yes, they obviously changed his costume up to match a real life film, but it worked. There was nothing that I was like, oh, that's really wrong with that. It just all really worked. Evil Lynn's a funny one for me. I didn't mind her performance. I think she was going very tongue-in-cheek, and, you know, you couldn't trust her a little bit. And, you know, she got a lot of the nuances that I felt and remembered from watching the show as a kid with Evil Lynn. But again, there was one little thing I didn't like. I know that they got the hair right. I know that she had white hair because she takes her helmet off in one of the episodes, from what I recall. And I believe in later shows they showed her hair a bit more prominently, which I don't care for. I think not having the hair made her look more mysterious, but she's got this white hair poking out continually at the bottom of her helmet. And I just felt it softened her a little bit. And that's why I much prefer the 1987 casting and portrayal of Evil Lynn. For me, that was stronger. She looked sterner and more, I wouldn't mess with her type thing. Now, I think the costume in this was more cartoon authentic than the 1987 one by far. But I think they lost something with this one that the 1987 had. So that was a bugbear a little bit. I thought Mechaneck was fantastic. The way they did him, even facially, he just looked like Mechaneck to me. And I've never seen Mechaneck on screen before. I don't think anyone has. It's amazing that they made him so realistic and look so good and authentic to the original design. Teela I thought was fantastic too. I really liked Teela in it. But they got rid of her leggings. What the hell? No, they gave her leggings, sorry. That's what I mean. Again, I get it. I don't care that much, but I'm like, oh, why? It was so close to the authentic design. I guess they have their reasons, but I was just like, I really want mine pure to what it was, you know. But Teela was great in it, really, really good. Obviously, they changed it up for Man-at-Arms with Idris, who I love as an actor. I think he's great as Luther, really solid performer. And I think they did something quite different with Man-at-Arms, to be honest with you, narratively, which I wasn't really expecting. I don't know if I liked it, but I understand the reason for it and the need for it. So yeah, but you know, he wasn't obviously designed the same way as the original cartoon, but he looked great. He was great. Yeah, no complaints. What else? I'm trying to avoid getting to my big issue with this film. I'm trying to pick out all the positives. Thought King Randor was really well cast. Really well cast. Wasn't so struck on Queen Marlena, but Randor I thought was on point. They're the key characters from what I recall. They are the key characters. Now, my biggest issue with this film is He-Man. Adam, He-Man. I'm sorry, but the guy who plays him, Nicholas, I've not seen him in anything else, and he was okay in it. You know, he's not a bad actor or anything like that, but he just, for me, first of all, he obviously lacks the physical presence of the cartoon character. He doesn't look aesthetically the same by any stretch, which I had a real issue with. I want my He-Man to look like He-Man. But again, I could have forgave the physicality if I felt they got the character right. And personally, I don't feel they got the character right. I mean, Adam, I think he was a better Adam than I was expecting. Better Adam than he was He-Man. But I still felt Adam was wrong. To me, in the cartoon, Adam was always aloof and lazy and a bit dumb. But he wasn't. That was his disguise. He was playing up to it somewhat. Whereas I felt in this version, that's just who he was. I've spoke with people who've since said, yeah, but that's because he had a different bringing up. They changed the origin story slightly. And I'm like, okay, I can see that. I can see that. Again, I probably wouldn't have gone in that direction with the film myself, but given they did, I understand that. Don't like it, but I have more grace for it now since taking that on board than I did when I first walked out the film. But then we get to the He-Man part, and this is where my real issue lies. For me, the transformation has always been everything. Everything. And it just wasn't. They said all the right words in all the right places, but the physicality of it was just lacking. I want to feel the hairs on my neck stand on end in that moment. The cartoon still does that to me to this day. This didn't come close. Yes, visually there was some interesting visual effects about the change, but yeah, it just fell flat for me. It really did. The big one is I want to see him go, I have the power, and he didn't. He's just, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. And I was just like, not for me, not for me. So anyway, he becomes He-Man. And I don't suppose I should be shocked they went the route they did, but for me, this is not He-Man. It was basically Adam learning to be He-Man. Where's the confidence? Where's the leadership? Where's everything that made He-Man He-Man? Where's his presence? It wasn't there, not for me. And I had an issue with that. And I know a lot of people have said, yeah, but he's learning to become He-Man. And I'm like, yeah, but for me, that's not what the power is. The power isn't just you get a tan and supposedly more muscular. He doesn't even get more muscular. But I was like, for me, the power is, yes, you get the strength, but you also get the strength of character. You get the leadership. You know who you are. You know, you're there. You're there to ground everyone else and make everyone else feel at ease that you're capable. You've got this. I didn't feel that with him. And for me, that's a massive, massive flaw with He-Man. Then coupled with his lack of physique, because it was weak. I mean, Skeletor was leaner and more muscular than He-Man. I know Jared's is a bodysuit, but it's He-Man, you know, and people go, oh, we don't want a big bodybuilder to play the role. I agree, neither do I. That's not what I'm saying, but he doesn't look like He-Man. He looks like a Timu He-Man, if that. I mean, look at someone like Chris Hemsworth. I'm not saying Chris Hemsworth's right or he's the right age for it now, but at least he's got the physique of He-Man. He's not a bodybuilder. And he played Thor, but he looked great. That's what I want my He-Man to look like. Someone who's capable. Not this smooth, barely defined version we got. It was an issue for me. It really was. And I think that was my big issue with the film. And coupled with the little changes they made to costumes and portrayals. It made those feel even heavier than what with this, because it was a good film. It was a solid film, but as I say, if I was a kid, I probably would have gone, that was great, enjoyed it. As an adult looking back, I'm sort of like, oh, so close. But they miscast him as far as I'm concerned. And they made changes that didn't need changing as far as I'm concerned. So they were big two things with it, really. But it was entertaining. There was stuff in there that I didn't like there's Earth sequences. Didn't care for them. I think with the Earth sequences, I'd rather have seen Skeletor's leadership on Eternia, or at least how Adam went from child to adult, rather than just overlook all the obvious questions we would have had. And I get there's only so much time, and I get that actually it's a popcorn movie and maybe we don't need to get that deep. But if you're going to set up that premise, I want to kind of see the repercussions of that premise. So that didn't work for me. And this has been my big wrestling match this last week, is between what I wanted, what we got, how it felt after first seeing it, and how I feel now. And the truth is, how I feel now is it was a decent film. Wasn't the best film, but it was decent, because I'm still talking about it. I still would watch it again. But I think it could have been more. I think they were and I think this is what annoys me. I think they were so close to it being near perfect. I'm like, why? I feel like you dropped the ball, and you got a good film, but it wasn't great. Was it entertaining? Sure, it was entertaining. Was it, close to the source material? It was near enough. It wasn't far off. But when you get your main character wrong, or one of your main characters wrong, I think that's a bit of a problem. And I think, for me, Dolph in the 1987 one, he's arguably, he's not Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp as an actor, or De Niro. He's Dolph Lundgren, but he looked like He-Man. And to be honest, he felt like He-Man. I never questioned. His costume was completely different, but he felt like He-Man. And all the other cast in that film, Teela felt like Teela, Evil Lyn felt like Evil Lyn, Skeletor felt like Skeletor, Man-at-Arms felt like Man-at-Arms. There were budget restrictions, and the costumes were not very faithful compared to this one. So I think what that film got right, this film didn't, and vice versa. And it's a shame, because I think they both had really great qualities. This film is far better than the 1987 one. I just think casting choices were better in the 1987 one for the most part, and they understood the characters more for the most part. Not in all instances, there's always exceptions, but generally speaking, I felt that was truer than what we got. However, this looked more like what I wanted, if that makes sense. Narratively, it was all right. I was never expecting Goodfellas, or, a massive, complex story. It was a basic story, it did the job, it was fine, it got from A to B to C. I have no issue with that. I guess it's what head you look at it in. Was it good and entertaining? Yes, it was. Was it faithful to the source material? For the most part, yes. Were the things that they didn't get right and were frustrating? Absolutely, yes. But I would say, for me, about a 6.5. I think in the first 20 minutes, I was like, this is going to be a 9 out of 10 for me. But it leveled out about 6.5, which is still solid. I think it was good. I am looking forward to watching it again at some point. I'll wait for it to hit streaming or something. But yeah, after 40 years, I'm happy but disappointed, because it was everything I wanted in one sense. but they got the main thing wrong for me. They got Adam and He-Man wrong. Yeah, just my thoughts. Don't punish me in the comments, because I know most people won't agree with me, and that's fine, you know, but it's my opinion, and that's what I thought, and that's how I feel. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this little review, and till next time.